Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, a whole new series here, ready to begin today. I'm going to probably do about another 4 or 5 of these for this go around, so be on the lookout for these throughout the rest of the week. And then also, I'm going to see about seeing some past suggestions as well, because I promise I always go back and look at other past suggestions. I'll try to mix in one more, maybe like as a cryptid of the week, and then that way I'd be able to knock that out too. So thank you again for your suggestions. This go around, the first one that I'm going to talk about, I picked because it has to do with one of my favorite subjects. That Q&A that I just did during my last special edition, I was asked what are my favorite types of cryptids, and I mentioned that it's always or tends to be the kind where it's beings that are there but they're not there. In other words, if you're looking at a blank space or a blank corner, you're looking at it and there's nothing there, but there could be something. Like in terms of the Holdu folk, that's one that stands out. The Tulpa is another one, and in some cases even the Machine Elves, and then of course my very favorite, the Genius Loki. So this one follows that same theme, and it has to do with a creature of some sort, or a set of creatures that have been around a long time, based on at least some of the statues dedicated to them. They've definitely been around for a good number of years, maybe even centuries. Not centuries, I'm sorry, but thousands of years, depending on how far back civilization was there in Maya. But it has to do with a strange creature known as the Alux, which we're looking at a picture of here. And it has very similar characteristics in some ways to the Duende, which I've covered in the past. One of my more popular videos too. So if you haven't seen that, check it out when you have a chance. But in this case, the big difference between the two is that the Alux happens to be an entity that's almost invisible, I guess, for most of its life. It's hardly ever seen, but the only time it does come forth when it interacts with people, that's when I guess people truly see them for what they are. And then on top of that, the other big difference is the Alux, for most intents and purposes, they are nice creatures. They're not the kind that'll create havoc and just essentially terrorize someone. Although in some instances, people have reported those situations happening, but it's much rarer. So another difference between that and the Duende. So what is the Alux? Well, based on the descriptions that people have stated, it's some type of creature of some sort that most of its life is either a sprite or a spirit, and it has been there for a long time, both in the Yucatan Peninsula and in Guatemala. In fact, you're looking at a statue of it here. I mean, this thing has existed apparently since the Mayan days. That's how far back it goes, because these statues that look to have been dedicated to them showcase what people have seen. And again, most of its life, or most of its existence, when it interacts with people, people don't see it. They don't know it's there. It's completely invisible. It just has no sense. Like, you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, you cannot sense it. It's just existing there. But whenever there is that chance that circumstances cause it to come forward, that's when people describe it as being as follows. It's about a size of a small person, but even smaller. So not like, let's say, your average, let's see, like dwarf or smaller person, but no. It's even smaller than that stature, because it's only about a knee high is the description. And they, even to this day, apparently still dress as traditional Mayan people. So basically, if you've seen those artworks depicting a generic example of the Mayan civilization, imagine that with these creatures as well. That's at least how they look like when they're in human form. And I use those air quotes with human form because these creatures also apparently can change shapes. Like, they are shapeshifters too. So whenever they decide to become humans, they do so, albeit in a curious level, again only being knee high as opposed to like a traditional human size. But they can also take shapes of other animals. People have reported them being like the size of weasels, or they reported them being the size of larger canines, and in some cases, I think I even was reading one that someone reported that it almost like shapeshifted or came back as a giant, almost Bigfoot. Like, that's that particular size. So it goes to show that there's not really one description with these Aluxes, but rather it can take any shape or form. And then with regards to its interactions with people, as I was saying at the very beginning, they seem to be very helpful in some cases. Like they're there, they live in the forest, they interact with people. I guess either if people move towards their location or vice versa. But when they do so, the people there make sure that they help out the Aluxes or pay the proper respect to them, and in turn, the Aluxes make sure that good things come to them. For example, whenever someone moves into a particular region of the forest and they set up a farm of some sort, it is customary for the farmer there to build a little house on the property. And the reason for this is because it's like an offering of some sort. It's in the idea that this farmer is now encroaching on some of their property, the Alux's property, or they believe that they're encroaching on it. And so they want to make sure that they kind of gain the permission of the Aluxes. And these Aluxes almost, I guess, cherish that respect, because what happens next is the Aluxes are supposed to make sure that in turn this field is bountiful and plentiful. So that not only that, but they'll help make sure that the whatever crop is there grows, but then they also can help summon rain. So if there's a lot of nights or days where there's, let's say, a lack of rain, and you have an Alux there in your field, then the Alux will help take care of that. They can help forth summon the rain. And then on top of that, any other creatures that, let's say, try to eat that particular crop, or in some cases even other people that try to steal the crops, these Aluxes are very protective of that farmer's land now, because they'll either scare off those predators or they'll scare off the thieves as well. And then on top of that, they'll even patrol the fields at night. I guess they just want to make sure that these creatures, that these, I guess, fields are 100% protected. By the way, they're never supposed to sleep. These Aluxes, apparently, they just, whatever mythical beings that they just always stay awake. And in some cases, even when people report them sleeping, they really aren't. They just happen to be in a stance or a meditation of some sort where they are still there, but they have their eyes open. So that way they can make sure that they have nothing surprising them or coming forth to them. Now here's where things get a little bit more trickier with the Aluxes, because apparently they have the ability to, even like humans, they wear out their welcome. So what happens is, after an Alux has been on the property for a good number of years, then the farmers start noticing that the Aluxes, maybe they start, I guess, pushing boundaries, because all of a sudden there's like more trickery involved. I don't know exactly what that trickery entails, but the idea is they're supposed to wreak havoc, and if for some crazy reason they also spread illness towards some of the people that are there. And so, I don't know, maybe the Aluxes decide, you know what, we don't like these people anymore, or in turn, they say they don't want these people on the field, like their farm, in their property or their territory anymore. So that's when they start doing this. And so the idea is that home that I mentioned earlier, the one that the farmers built as a token of respect, so that way the Aluxes can have almost like a place to live in. You're supposed to be able to then trap the Aluxes within the home, and it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is wait 7 years. I don't know what 7 years has to do with any other different number, but the magic mark is 7 years. You wait for that to happen, and then for some reason the farmer has the ability to then trap the Alux within that little home. They close the windows, they close the little doors of the house, and that in turn seals the Alux. And when that happens, then that's when their previous time of running wild is stopped, and then the farmer is able to live in peace. So I don't know if that's 100%, let's say, infinite when it comes to the time period of keeping them sealed, or if the farmers basically move the house to another location, that little tiny house, and in turn move the Alux elsewhere. I don't know, but those are some of the, I guess, trickier instances with the Alux. Another situation where things can somewhat go bad, these Aluxes can occasionally, just on their own, appear in front of people. In fact, I was reading a story. There was a tourist, and he was traveling, I think it was there in Guatemala. He said that he was in Yucatan. I'm sorry. He was in Yucatan area back in 2007, and he said that he spotted one of these creatures. His name was Dan Gannon, and he said he, out of the blue, he spotted a raccoon there on the right side of the dirt road. Then, when I don't know if he was there just parked in his car or he was just driving along, but about 2 minutes later, that's when he then saw a 2 feet tall, medium brown colored creature that he said moved behind a pile of dried weeds. And the way he described it is it looked humanoid, but it wasn't humanoid at the same time. Just like you probably saw in one of the other pictures with these creatures, it's the idea again that they look almost like a human, but again with them being so small, and at the same time them looking like extreme when it comes to their features. Like in this case, this one was very, very muscular. It made this creature look not very human-like. And then that's when this guy Dan Gannon realized that he was dealing with one of the Aluxes. Now I don't know if he paid an offering to this creature or just pretty much hightailed it out of there, but that was his experience. The offering, by the way, is something that you're supposed to do if you happen to run into a Lux. So again, if you're somewhere there in Guatemala or maybe even the Yucatan and you happen to see a foot-high creature wandering about that again looks somewhat humanoid and is dressed in ancient Mayan clothing, then if one of them comes straight to you, you're supposed to, I guess, respectfully greet it, and then make sure that if it asks for anything, like if it asks for any kind of offering, whatever it is, even if you don't have it, you can at least try to make some effort. Because if you do that, then the Lux is supposed to protect you, I guess, for the rest of the trip. Because you did the right thing. The creature came forth to you and it asked for something, maybe even something that you may not have, but at least if you made the effort, then it liked it, and then it makes sure that it was going to protect you for the rest of the trip from any kind of thieves or just in general good luck. And then on top of that, if you treat them with overall respect, then they'll be very helpful throughout the rest of the trip too. Now, if you refuse, like let's say you just ignore the Alux right then and there, then that's when they're supposed to either give you some kind of illness or overall create havoc on your trip. I don't know if that entails maybe, let's say this creature, let's say if you're in the car and then it decides it wants to blow up one of your tires, or if it just wants to overheat your engine, just anything that would essentially just make sure that your trip is miserable, then this thing has the ability to do it. But it's quite easy to avoid it. All you have to do again is just treat it with respect, make sure you can give it its offering, or at least try to, and then it is on good terms. So, but that's all the information I have with the Alux. There's the idea too that the Alux, again, very, very similar to the Duende, might have even been, I don't know if it's a cousin of some sort from the Duende, but back then during the Mayan days, the Mayans had some frequent interactions with some Spanish and pirates during their era, and when that happened, then the Mayans heard about, I guess, the Duendes, and in turn, they started then having these interactions with these creatures, these Aluxes, which may be a variation of them, or they could actually be just the Duendes themselves. So, if anyone has any more information about these Aluxes, that would be great to hear. Pretty fascinating creature. Again, with this thing, you don't see it if you're there in Guatemala or Yucatan or anywhere else similar. You don't see it for most of its life, only when it chooses to interact, or if you happen to, let's say, create a new farmland and it goes towards it. But if you do, then you can somewhat be on good terms as long as you follow the rules. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.